It's the Bears and the Vikings, full coverage right here on the home of the Bears, ESPN 1000, on the ESPN Chicago app. Good morning, Tom. How are you?
Jay Hood, good to talk to you. How you doing? Kap?
Doing great.
As well.
Tommy, what's up? Double T. So we get into Monday. We played audio from Ben Johnson where he said, Hoodie, can you play that for Tom? It's a brief cut of audio. This is Ben Johnson yesterday talking about Caleb.
Yeah, he's so young, and there's a lot he's learning, but he's a sponge right now. I mean, he was up in my office a couple days ago, and we watched a couple games together, and he's just, the entire time, anything I would say, I see him jotting it down in his notebook, and so that's an encouraging thing right now with where we're at. We're going to grow together. This offense is going to grow together with him, and there'll be some bumpy steps along the way, but that's okay. That's the nature of doing it. But I feel really good about where he's at right now, and there's no reason why we can't win this year.
There's no reason why we can't win this year. I said to Hoodie, there is no way that if Ben Johnson was coming home at night saying to his wife, oh boy, this kid ain't who I thought he is, we're effed. I'm not saying that Caleb's ready to be the league MVP, but that statement right there tells me we're making progress in the right direction. Do you agree?
I do, but I think there's it's going to take time. Don't have unrealistic expectations in the knowledge of this offense week one of this season, because in order to master the terminology, to know what it means when you break the huddle, and then you look across the line of scrimmage as you're approaching the line of scrimmage to see what the defense is going to offer you. And then you look at a guy like Harrison Smith, who he can be lined up 10 yards away where he's actually going to attack you from at the snap of the ball. And then you filter in this. Until you can master the terminology and understand everything perfectly, you have a difficult time varying your cadence. Now, if you become consistent with running the same tempo of the cadence to an experienced defense, especially when you play at home and there's no crowd noise, that's going to be another opportunity for the defense to capitalize on getting off the ball a little bit quicker. So there's a bunch of different dynamics that come into play that until Caleb masters the understanding of the exact specifics of the terminology, and he's not going to the line of scrimmage thinking about what he just said and how it pertains to across the ball defense, that there's going to be a lot of thinking going on. And Dick Stanfield, our offensive line coach, the very first game I started, he said, if you think, you're beat. And that's one of the growing pains that we're all going to have to live with in the initial stages of this offense in the Ben Johnson era. So if there is a bump in the road, don't throw your hands up in the air and walk to the fridge and turn your radio off and all that kind of stuff. Understand, man, it's going to take time.
Tom, let's kind of get into the weeds a little bit as far as the trenches. So from the Vikings standpoint, the Vikings trenches with the offensive defensive line, they're deep. I think it's as good as it's been since the Williams, Wall, and Jared Allen were out there for the Vikings. I'm wondering what the Bears can do offensively against, first of all, a blitzing defense, but also a strong defensive line.
First of all, the early aggressive deception of play action. And if you can get the offensive line that said, okay, we're outmanned maybe on one of the edges, whether it's John, Grenard, or it's Van Ginkel or some of the inside talent they signed, if we can come off in this play action and we can be in a stance and we can keep our helmets low, Caleb can have any snap count he wants. And they come off the ball and they run to the defensive front seven. Now you got linebackers stepping up, and you got the defensive line that are trying to maintain their ground because they think it's a run rather than aggressively pass rushing. And then you can use Colston Loveland in a mismatch. You can use Cole Kmet in a mismatch or the other exterior receivers. You can be aggressive at the line of scrimmage and not necessarily have to sustain a 3-second block like straight drop back, because it's an aggressive approach in play action. And to me, I was recently talking about it, I think that play action can feed the run game rather than the run game feeding play action in the initial stages of this offense, because you have some really difficult guys to match up against if you're talking about Rome and DJ, Colston and Cole, and then whomever else you want to put out there as that other receiver or a running back out of the backfield. And, you got to play into the hands of where Ben Johnson feels that Caleb is at his most confident right now. And to me, confidence is in play action for the offensive line that trickles back to the quarterback.
Ben Johnson ran the ball 48% of the time last year in Detroit. Do you expect the Bears, without a Jahmyr Gibbs, we may have a reasonable facsimile of David Montgomery and DeAndre Swift? We don't have a Gibbs. Do you expect the Bears to run the ball that much or more or less?
I think initially it might be less, Cap, because right now you got DeAndre Swift. That's what we know. We haven't seen an injury report of where Monangai is. Is Britton Brown going to be active on Monday night? Where is Roshan? So if you think you're going to run it 48% of the time and you're going to give DeAndre Swift 30 carries a week for the first 4 weeks of the season, you're really taking a chance on hurting him in the latter stages of the season. I need to know who my backfield is. And that's in numbers, not necessarily just in DeAndre. Because if we talk about Detroit over the last couple of years with Ben, we talk about both Montgomery and Gibbs. And so you have a nice 1-2 punch there. So right now, what we know going in preparation for Minnesota is we have a 1 punch, but who is that 2? And to me, if you're going to talk about running it 48% of the time, are you going to give more carries to DJ back there than you initially thought you were going to?
Tom Thayer with us, brought to you by Aurelio's Pizza here on the Kap and J Hood Morning Show on ESPN 1000 and streaming on the ESPN Chicago app. Cap, Tom, this is interesting, this matchup, because on one end we are hyper-focused on Ben Johnson and the development of Caleb Williams. What about the other side, though? You got Kevin O'Connell working with a young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. Now, just think about this. So you think about how you had Sam Darnold in place, and he just came out of nowhere. We didn't know he was going to have that kind of season.
Yep.
And now he's gone, and here's J.J. McCarthy. I just want you to juxtapose these two stories, Tom, because, we're so focused on Caleb, but what about J.J. McCarthy? His first matchup, his first opportunity to be on the big stage against the Bears. What do you think that's going to be from Minnesota's standpoint?
Well, Jay Hood, think of yourself. Say you had the luxury of going to work for a whole year. We're going to pay you, but you don't even have to do a thing. You're not expected to talk. All you got to do is show up and collect your check, just like JJ did last year. He had the luxury of sitting knowing that there wasn't going to be any pressure on him to go out and, rescue Sam Darnold. Darnold played well, but there was no chance of him playing so now he sat in those meetings, digested all that information from Kevin O'Connell, sat there on the sidelines, understood the pregame routine, has big stadium experience from his time in the Big Ten. So this is not sticker shock to him. He knows what's going to happen. And he's got more experience in this offense than Caleb Williams has in his offense. My concern for JJ is they're super thin at the receiver position. They got question marks at Christian Darrisaw, the left tackle there. And so that's the great unknown. So now if you have this Bears crowd that can be so hostile that he can't communicate on the line of scrimmage, then maybe you give those blitz opportunities or those deployable weapons that Dennis Allen is going to be able to use to get J.J. McCarthy off a spot, or get a guy like Gervon Dexter Sr. penetration, hands up in the air, and taking away a throwing lane even if he can't get to the sack. So knowledge-wise, JJ, I think, is going to be okay. But the whole idea of having super limited time with the receivers and the left tackle, that's kind of my concern for the Minnesota Vikings.
I guess from McCarthy's standpoint, the blessing is he's got the best wide receiver in the National Football League to throw to.
Correct.
Who's been banged up with a hamstring as well. And no Jordan Addison. I know they have Hawkinson's a really good player. Aaron Jones is a really good running back. What is your biggest concern, not just Monday, about this team? Is it Braxton Jones at left tackle? Is it somebody to rush the passer and make guys uncomfortable? Who is it?
My concern is Braxton Jones to Jalen Johnson to the depth at the running back position. And I think each team has their own concerns. Like we just mentioned, Harrison Smith hasn't practiced yet. He plays an important role at that defense. You talk about the wide receiver position and how thin they've been throughout training camp. And Darisaw, the offensive tackle that got hurt last year, he's just in recovery. Now we got Braxton Jones, similar, recovering from an injury. Jalen Johnson hasn't been on the field for a snap yet. And then we have a running back position, and you said at 48% of the time he likes to run the ball, but you just don't have significant depth. And so my concerns are exactly that. Where is Caleb at? Where's the left tackle? Where's the cornerback? And where is the running back position? So each of these teams, which concerns present themselves the least, could have a factor in this game.
What I like about Ben Johnson is the honesty. You've heard us talk about this already, Tom, how you have some coaches that'll BS you, and they got to say what they got to say to the press. I get that. But Ben Johnson's just telling you, it's a process. We're not telling you that we're going to go 17-0. We're telling you that, hey, with Caleb Williams, with all these new parts, it's a process. We're going to see where we're at the bye. That's actually refreshing and honest because he's not guaranteeing anything. He just knows that he sees progress in practice.
I tell you what, I'd love to be a fly on the wall inside of a team meeting because there's things that Ditka would say to the press that were mean about us, but then he'd come in the team meeting and be meaner. So, and I listen, Ben has been refreshing since the very first day that he's walked up to the podium. But I think that everything's about to change because the regular season is here and these performances need to get graded week in and week out. And if you're playing up to the expectations of every one of your position coaches, fine. If you're not playing up to the expectations of the organization, the general manager, the head coach, and then, we're always going to have to consider a change. And that's not a threat. It's just the reality of professional sports.
In terms of looking at this game, if you had to make a pick, do you feel comfortable with the Bears winning the game? Because both Waddle and I'm not speaking for Hoodie, I'll be very disappointed if the Bears lose. Not because they lost, because I think they should win the football game.
I'd be as disappointed as in 2 years ago when they got beat by the Green Bay Packers week 1 in Jordan Love's first start. Because when you think about first start quarterbacks and where the Bears are, and I really think they have the most creative offensive mind that's been here in decades. And you have guys like Colston and Cole and DJ and Rome and the rest of the crew on offense that are difficult matchups no matter who you're playing. Minnesota with some defensive back issues to anybody else you're going to play throughout the regular season.
Tom, we got a minute left. Give us a log on the fire with the Bears and Vikings. Your memories of playing against the Vikings. Give us that one memory that comes to mind.
I'll give you two. So that Monday night or the Thursday night edition of Monday Night Football when McMahon came in and played,
yep.
I hadn't played at all the first two games, and I was so disappointed that I was pouting. And I was sitting on the bench, and I didn't get my ankles taped. I didn't get prepared like I should have in case. And then all of a sudden, Kurt Becker got injured. Dick Stanfield came over, and he said, "Hey, Beck hurt his knee, you're in." And so then I go out there, and I'm so mentally and physically unprepared because I was pouting, and I learned a lesson that day. But then there was another game that we were playing in Minnesota when they had Chris Dolman, Al Noga, Henry Thomas, and Keith Millard. And I remember reading a sign on the fourth quarter, and it said, "Thus far, the Bears have given up 9 sacks this season. Tonight, they've given up 7." So,
oh God.
But that was in the old Roller Dome, so that was a little bit of
wow.
Going in there, and man, we're online. We could give up less than 10 sacks in the season, and we gave up 7 that night.
And never ever did you go out there without your ankles taped again.
Never again. It's the only game in the history of my career that I actually took a team bus to an away game. Because I used to take a cab so early in the day to the stadium. And I was kind of, like I said, I was whining and pouting. So I go, I'm going to take the third bus, and I don't care how long, I don't need to be ready anyways. And to any young sports guy, don't ever take it for granted you're not going to play.
Tom, as always, we appreciate the time.
All right, guys, thank you.
Have a great broadcast.